On March 2, 2015, at exactly 12:01 a.m., the quiet hum of the execution chamber in Georgia's death row echoed in the stillness. The time had come. After nearly 18 years behind bars, Kelly Gissendaner was about to pay the ultimate price for her crime. In those final moments, as the clock ticked closer to midnight, there was a chilling sense of inevitability in the air, one that weighed heavily on her heart. For Kelly, the end was imminent. But was she the monster they had made her out to be? Or was there something deeper, something more complex to the story that had brought her here? As she sat in her small, cold cell, Kelly's mind drifted back to a time before the crime, before the trial, before the endless nights spent in the oppressive silence of her prison. She thought of the life she once had, the life that had been so carelessly destroyed by her own choices. She thought of Douglas Gissendaner, the man whose death sentence had been sealed by her actions. But there was a bitter irony in it all. Douglas, a man who had once been her partner in life, was no longer here to speak for himself. And now, just hours away from her own death, Kelly was left with the haunting thought: was this justice? Or was she just another casualty of a broken system? Kelly's story begins long before that fateful night. She wasn't always the woman condemned to die on death row. At one time, she was just like any other woman, living a life that seemed filled with potential, filled with promise. Born in 1968, Kelly grew up in a small town, dreaming of a future full of love and family. She met Douglas Gissendaner in the early 90s, and what followed was a whirlwind romance that led to marriage. At first, everything seemed perfect, a couple with big plans for their lives together. But beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. Kelly's marriage to Douglas began to show cracks. She felt trapped, dissatisfied, and eventually, she began an affair with Gregory Owen, a man who promised her the escape she so desperately sought. This affair wasn't just a fling, it was the beginning of a downward spiral that would ultimately lead Kelly to make the fateful decision to kill her husband. In the shadows of their fractured marriage, Kelly and Gregory planned the unthinkable. On the night of February 23, 1997, Kelly set the stage for the murder that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. She manipulated Gregory into carrying out the act. Douglas, a man she once loved, would be killed at the hands of her lover as she watched it all unfold. What drives a person to orchestrate the death of someone they once vowed to cherish? Was Kelly just another woman in an unhappy marriage who made a terrible mistake? Or was she a cold-blooded killer hiding behind a facade of remorse and repentance? As Kelly sat in her cell, just hours away from the lethal injection, those questions loomed large in her mind. Could she ever atone for what she had done? Would anyone ever see her as anything other than the woman who had betrayed and killed her husband? The time was now ticking down, and for Kelly, there was no escape. The end was near. It was a cold February night in 1997, the kind of night that felt like the world itself had turned its back on Douglas Gissendaner. A father of 3, a son, a husband. Douglas had lived a life that could have been straight out of a small-town dream. But on that fateful night, his future was stolen from him, a victim of betrayal from the one person who was supposed to protect him, his wife. At the heart of this tragic story was Kelly Gissendaner, a woman whose love for her husband had faded into a chasm of regret and longing. Her marriage, once filled with hope, had soured. She found herself caught in a dangerous affair with Gregory Owen, a man who promised the freedom Kelly desperately craved. But freedom came at a terrible cost. Kelly's affair wasn't just about seeking comfort. It was about escaping the cage of a life that no longer felt like her own. What started as a fleeting escape turned into a sinister plot, one that would spiral into a violent act that would leave no one untouched. With a cold, calculated mind, Kelly set in motion a plan to end her marriage, to free herself from the bond that had grown suffocating. The plan wasn't just about killing her husband. It was about eliminating the very person who held her to a life she no longer wanted. In the dark, under the cover of betrayal, she convinced Gregory to murder Douglas. They lured him out into the woods, where the unspeakable would happen. Douglas's life would be taken by the hands of the woman who once swore to love him until death did them part. Douglas never stood a chance. Kelly's involvement in his death was undeniable, but what about her remorse? Was the woman facing execution the same person who had orchestrated such a brutal act, or was she truly a different person, forever marked by guilt and regret? Do you think Kelly ever truly repented for her crime, or was her remorse just part of a strategy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you. It was a cold, quiet night in Lawrenceville, Georgia, when Douglas Gissendaner was found brutally murdered, stabbed to death in a secluded patch of woods. What seemed like a random act of violence quickly took a dark turn as investigators began to dig deeper. It didn't take long for them to realize this wasn't a crime of passion. It was a carefully orchestrated plan, one that had been set in motion by someone Douglas knew intimately. Kelly Gissendaner was not just a grieving wife. She was the mastermind behind her husband's murder. The authorities' first clue came from Gregory Owen, the man Kelly had been having an affair with. In a startling turn of events, Owen, unable to live with the guilt, confessed to his involvement in the crime. He admitted to stabbing Douglas, but what shocked investigators was his revelation. Kelly had planned it all. At first, Kelly denied it. She stuck to the story that Owen had acted on his own, that she had been a helpless bystander in the tragedy. But as the investigation continued, the evidence mounted. Texts, phone calls, and witness statements all pointed back to her. She had lured Douglas to his death with promises of reconciliation, only to set him up for the ultimate betrayal. The more investigators uncovered, the clearer it became that Kelly had played a pivotal role in the murder. Her affair with Owen wasn't just an escape from a failing marriage. It had become a part of a deadly scheme. The plan was simple: get rid of her husband, be with her lover, and take control of her life. But in the aftermath, the only thing Kelly truly gained was the irreversible damage of a life lost and a family shattered. When Kelly was finally confronted with the undeniable evidence, her defense crumbled. The cold reality of her actions settled in, and she was arrested. The trial that followed was as intense as it was tragic. Kelly, once a woman with a seemingly perfect future, was now a woman facing the death penalty for orchestrating a crime so horrific, so calculated, that it would haunt her for the rest of her days. Do you think Kelly acted out of desperation, or was she a cold, calculating killer from the start? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's dive into what really drives someone to make such an unthinkable choice. The days leading up to Kelly Gissendaner's execution were filled with an emotional and moral struggle, not only for her, but for the entire state of Georgia. The death penalty, once a certain sentence, had now become the focal point of a heated debate. Was Kelly Gissendaner truly deserving of death? Could her transformation, the undeniable remorse she had shown in prison, change her fate? Or was justice, brutal and final, still the only way forward? As Kelly sat on death row, the weight of her actions was always with her. But in the years since her conviction, something had shifted. Kelly's spiritual transformation was remarkable. She had found religion, spent her time volunteering to help others, and became a beacon of remorse for many of the prison staff and inmates who knew her. The once cold-blooded killer now saw herself as someone who had changed, a woman who understood the consequences of her actions and was determined to make amends, if not through the law, then in the eyes of her own conscience. Her journey of repentance wasn't a solitary one. Her letters to Douglas's family were filled with heartfelt apologies, detailing how deeply she regretted taking his life, how she felt the weight of her actions in every moment. But the response she received was more cold than warm. The Gissendaner family, understandably, refused to forgive her. They couldn't forget the loss of Douglas. a man whose life was taken in the most brutal way by the woman who should have been protecting him. The legal proceedings surrounding Kelly's execution were equally fraught. Her legal team worked tirelessly, submitting appeals, legal challenges, and petitions to halt the execution, arguing that Kelly had shown remorse and that executing her after so many years was cruel. The case became national news as public outcry grew louder. Human rights organizations, many of whom had been advocating against the death penalty for years, rallied behind Kelly. They saw her transformation as evidence of her redemption, questioning whether a sentence of life imprisonment would be a more fitting punishment. But the most notable intervention came from the Vatican itself. Pope Francis, a vocal opponent of the death penalty, made a public appeal, urging Governor Nathan Deal of Georgia to grant Kelly clemency. The Pope's plea was powerful, calling for mercy and forgiveness, especially for someone who had shown such profound change. Despite this, Georgia moved forward with the execution, undeterred by the pleas for mercy. The countdown had begun. Kelly's fate was sealed, but the emotional and ethical conflict remained at the forefront of the public's mind. Was mercy truly the right answer, or had the law spoken? As the final days of Kelly's life came closer, the world watched, torn between forgiveness and justice, between redemption and the irreversible toll of her crime. If Kelly's journey has left you questioning the true meaning of redemption and justice, subscribe to the channel. This is a case that challenges everything we think we know about crime, punishment, and forgiveness. Don't miss the conclusion of this incredible story. Hit that subscribe button now, and let's explore more stories that make us rethink what we believe about justice. As the clock struck 12:01 a.m., the cold, sterile walls of the execution chamber in Georgia's death row seemed to swallow the room whole. The air was thick with the weight of what was about to unfold. Kelly Gissendaner, the first woman in 70 years to be executed in Georgia, lay strapped to a gurney, the harsh, fluorescent lights above casting a cold shadow over her face. For a moment, the room was still. You could hear the faint sounds of footsteps from the guards, the rustling of uniforms, but nothing else. The world had been watching. There had been protests, pleas for mercy, and even a public intervention from Pope Francis himself, urging the state of Georgia to reconsider. But it was too late for that. Kelly's fate was sealed. In her final hours, Kelly had spent her time reflecting on the life she had taken, the family she had shattered, and the transformation she had undergone in the years since that fateful night. She had found faith in prison, something she had never known before. The woman who had once manipulated and betrayed her husband now saw herself as someone remorseful, someone who had changed. She had become a symbol of redemption for many, a woman who, despite her crime, had tried to make amends. But redemption, it seemed, could not be enough to save her. As the lethal injection was administered, Kelly closed her eyes, perhaps thinking of Douglas, the man she had killed. Had she truly repented? Could the woman who had plotted his death ever truly deserve to be at peace? In her final breath, Kelly whispered words of forgiveness, but they weren't just for herself. She had forgiven Gregory Owen, her lover, the man who had carried out the murder for her. A gesture of grace, perhaps, but one that could never undo the damage she had caused. Her last words? Simple. "I'm sorry. I love you." These were the words she would carry with her, the words that would end her story. And just like that, Kelly Gissendaner's life was over. The controversy of her execution, however, was far from settled. Douglas's family, still grieving, still torn by their loss, remained firm in their belief that justice had been served. But outside the prison gates, there was no consensus. Activists rallied against her execution, saying that a life sentence would have been more just, pointing to Kelly's redemption in prison as proof that she was no longer the same person. For Kelly, though, the debate was no longer relevant. The system had spoken. But in her final moments, her own internal peace seemed to come not from the public's judgment, or the legal process, but from knowing that she had taken responsibility for her actions. That, in the end, was the only thing she could control. As the door to the execution chamber closed behind her, one thing was certain. Kelly's story would not be easily forgotten. Her execution would forever serve as a reminder of the complexities of justice, redemption, and the morality of the death penalty itself. After watching Kelly's last moments, does her story leave you questioning the very nature of justice? Was her execution the right decision, or was it a tragic mistake? The lines between punishment and redemption aren't always so clear. If you've been moved by this story and want to dive deeper into the moral complexities of true crime, subscribe to the channel. We explore these tough questions and bring you more stories that challenge everything we think we know about justice. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button now and join the conversation.